Carolyn Doobie here. What's the play for today? Today I'm playing with the rainbow and little bottles. Yeah, usually I use big bottles of stuff, but this time it's little bottles because I'm doing some easy marbling. I've got a container of water here and I'm ready to add the color. I am just going to shake out drops of the color onto the water, as many or as few as what I want. You can see how they're interacting with each other as I add them on here, sort of shaker salt style. And you can add as many colors as you want, because the cool part here is the colors really don't mix. They stay distinct and individual colors. So you can really get lots and lots of it on there, which is really handy for someone like me that just loves an abundance of color. Once you've got all the colors that you want on there, then you can put a little bit of pattern to it. That is a very fancy toothpick that I'm using there to just swirl the color around. As tempting as it is to play with that swirling around of color, you need to stop at some point and then put your item that you're marbling on there. I'm just doing book text here. I'm just putting paper right in that water, and it's going to pick up all that pattern off of the surface. Now this is wet paper now, so I'm going to set it aside on some paper towels. That way it can dry. I'm going to clean off my toothpick so it's ready for the next one. And then if I see any leftover paint on the water, I can scoop it up by running my finger through it. I can put a popsicle stick through it. I can drag a spare piece of paper through it. Whatever you've got, just so you get any excess paint that's left on the top cleared off. Otherwise it might show up in your next marble, unless you want it to do that. Now can you tell what color I just added on there? What I'm doing now? Well, one of them was silver and one of them was white. And even though they look like they're not doing anything because they're invisible, they're really not. They are actually interacting on there, and it changes how the next color goes on top of it. So that's why I will often start with a layer of white on the water and then add color on top of it. As I add the color, notice how it seems to dance and move around even after it's right on there. As the different colors are kind of reacting, stuff sort of moving around and finding where it belongs right there on top of the water. Seeing all that happen is part of the reason why I love the process of making these marbled papers almost as much as I love how they look in the end result. I'm bringing that fancy toothpick again and I'm swirling it around, making a pattern in there until I've got it nice and mixed up just the way I want. Then in comes that book text. Now, by the way, can you use anything besides book text? If you can put it in water, then you can use it. You can put this marbling on just about anything. Now, this stuff's called Easy Marble and it's by Marabu. And I totally understand why this is the name of the product, because it is so easy to do. Because all that is right there is that's water. There's nothing added to it. It's just plain old tap water and then these little bottles. When I first started playing with these, I was a little skeptical about how long one of these little bottles would last. I like to buy things by the gallon, and so a bottle this size, well, I was just skeptical, especially since I like to add a lot of color to this. As you can see, I like to get a lot of color on that surface, get lots of it moving around, so I figured this stuff wouldn't last very long. And boy, was I wrong. This stuff goes and goes and goes. I have been incredibly pleased with how long these bottles last. They might be little, but they are mighty. Once you start making these, you start making quite a few of these marbled papers. So what can you do with them? Well, what would you do with any kind of wonderful paper? Anything that you would make with paper, you can use these for. Art journal pages, ATCs, cards, collages, whatever you enjoy doing, you can use these for it. Something that I found through my play is that I like the look of 2 or more colors acting together. So I had silver on there first. Even though you couldn't really see it, it is making that black behave a little differently. And so that's why I make sure that I use at least 2 every time I'm doing a marbling. When I use white or silver for that first layer, they become sort of like silent partners in the marbling. They don't make a big statement on the final print or pull that I'm going to do here, but they definitely were an important part of making the black, in this case, move around the way it did. Well, after that monochromatic one, I want to go with a full rainbow treatment here. Even though I'm adding a lot of colors in here, you would think it would go to mud, but it's not going to. The colors stay independent. They aren't really mixing together. They're all just kind of finding where they fit there, pushing and pulling on each other, but not mixing. So that means I'm, 1, going to be able to play with all the colors of the rainbow and not worry about mud. And 2, that's where the intricate details, it looks like I was so patient in doing this, when really this is an instant gratification kind of a thing. Get that color on there, swirl it around, and then take that print. Over on the blog at acolorfuljourney.com, I've got the full supply list for you, as well as photos of all of the marbled papers that I made. I've got lots of color on top of this water now, so it's time to bring in that toothpick. And if it gets a little gummed up with stuff, remember just to wipe it off before you put it in there. And then start swirling away. The more you swirl it, the more intricate your pattern becomes. The less you swirl it, the less intricate your pattern. So you have complete control over what you want your finished marbled print to look like. Thank you so much for joining me for today's play. If you've been enjoying this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to make sure that you don't miss my next video as soon as it's out, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll be in the know. And of course, thank you for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.